Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ben, this is Books with Bengus Khan, and today I have my February reading wrap-up. Man, I have continued to be just absolutely slammed at my job with new responsibilities, trying to find times to film, but I, at the very least, want to keep up with these reading wrap-ups because I like reflecting on my reads, and I don't script these out. I find I'm discovering often my thoughts and reflections as I'm articulating them, so I really enjoy doing these wrap-ups and as a log of my reading and keeping everyone updated with what I've been reading. Yeah, after March, I'm going on a trip with my wife soon. After that, I will hopefully be able to settle in and just film a little bit more regularly and get out more videos about specific series that I've been reading and loving, or authors, and doing more besides these wrap-ups. But at the very least, I love delivering these sometimes rambling reflections on what I'm reading. And man, I have read some great stuff this month. It is gonna go down as the month that I think I became a constant reader, a Stephen King mega fan who is committed to basically reading everything he's written, because I read a few books before, Salem's Lot, Apt People, and they were okay, I liked them, but just didn't hook me the same way that 11/22/63 did last year. But I was worried that that might be kind of one-off thing, a very special aspect of the plotting of that particular book, and so I was a little hesitant to read more, and I read Pet Sematary and also didn't fall fully in love with that one. But this month, encouraged by my buddy, read by Kyle, since I did a full Stephen King tier ranking over on his channel with him, just to let kind of facilitate him doing, because he's read everything. And The Long Walk was one of his favorites. He went out to audition for the new movie adaptation they're making, and I liked the idea of this dystopian premise, and oh my gosh, I loved this book. I was gripped to every page. It starts so quickly. We're off on the long walk with these 100 teenage boys, and there it is, just full of life and pain and just tension. It was astounding to me. I know I tend to love these really high stakes, tense plots, either in books or TV shows like Squid Game, and there's a nod to Shirley Jackson's The Lottery in this book. And I think there's a direct line you can draw from that story to this book, and then to ones like Battle Royale, Hunger Games, Squid Game, and Dungeon Crawler Carl. And so this is a really big influence, I think, in the dystopian world of art, and some of my favorite things too. And so it was really, really awesome to go back into when Stephen King was really young when he wrote this. It wasn't one of the first ones he published. It got published as one of the Bachman books under his pseudonym, and I think he wrote it though when he was still a late teenager or in college. And it's about these teenage boys that have volunteered to go on this long walk, this yearly tradition, that this dystopian version of America that seems like a kind of fascist totalitarian regime that they put on, and is published and is filmed with TV crews, and huge crowds come out all through the roads where this happens to watch the boys walking. And if they fall below a certain speed, they get warned. If they get three total warnings, and the fourth one, they get shot dead. And they volunteer for this, knowing what it is. And then, man, it was just so visceral, and I felt the tension from the boys, and the way that King surprised me here with how the boys weren't just at each other's throats, that they kind of formed something of a found family and were bonding over the course of this. Made it really, really special in the way they supported each other and weren't trying to undercut and undermine each other along the way. And man, that made it a really impactful read for me. Stunning stuff. It's really not very long. I read it over the course of a couple days. So it's one that'll just fly by. If you have not read this, and a kind of dystopian survival stakes kind of premise is interesting to you, definitely check this one out. Oh man, I love this. I can imagine myself rereading this in the future. And at first I was worried that some of the other boys, like they weren't really coming to life off the page. It was hard to distinguish them. But as you spend more time on the walk, you get a sense for all of the boys' very distinctive personalities, the way they talk, the way they interact with our POV character Garrity, who's a really good kid, and you really are rooting for him. But you end up rooting for a lot of these other kids. You don't want any of them, or most of them, to lose and to be killed. And so it's just a harrowing journey that we as we follow this whole thing. So yeah, spectacular. And it was at this point that I'm like, I think I just love Stephen King's writing voice. That even if I didn't fall in love with everything to do with Salem's Lot or Pet Sematary, I was still compelled in a lot of those by his writing style and his voice. And I think for that reason, after I read this, I'm like, you know what? I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and I want to basically dive in and try to read everything he's written. And so to find probably a lot more gems for me. And I had a book here that my sister had given me after she had gone through this. His most recent release, You Like It Darker, which is a bunch of short stories and some novellas, some that are kind of maybe towing the line between a novella and a short story. And I'm not through all of them yet because one of them is a sequel to Cujo, and I have to go back and read Cujo. But I've read most of these, and I don't read too many short stories, so I was a little hesitant. Would I fall in love with these? And I did. Oh my goodness. I started with The Answer Man at the back of this collection, and that was just as gripping as 11/22/63, or man, in its own really cool way, about a kind of it's a pre-World War II kind of setting at the beginning, and this it's during the Depression era in the U.S., and this person just is graduating from law school, and he's needing to make this really big life decision of whether to kind of set up shop at his father's famous law firm in Boston, or go out on his own and live with his wife in a little remote New Hampshire town that he really loves. And he finds, as he's driving around New Hampshire one day, he finds this answer man who you pay him like $25 or something. He'll answer any question you have for 5 minutes. This really is the short story that takes a long scope of someone's life, and was really impactful. I loved it. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm gonna have to check out all of Stephen King's short story collections and novella collections as well. And so I went back to the beginning of this with the novella or long short story, Two Talented Bastards. And that one also just had me utterly hooked. I loved that one. That one took some great twists and turns. And yeah, I don't really want to say anything about it, but the thing I really loved most would be a bit of a spoiler with that story. But that was fantastic. Then some of these really short stories, just where they're over and done in like 30 pages in a blink. They were really cool too, and some of them veered towards the horror side, and had me a little worked up. And then there was the long novella Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream, and this is about this was really great, but it was almost too much for me to handle, because it's set in like contemporary setting, I think Kansas, and this school janitor who's this really decent, good guy, has a dream of where a dead body is buried. This story was really hard for me to get through at points. I almost needed to kind of speed through the back half because I was suffering reading it, and I realized that's one of the reasons I really love like science fiction, fantasy, ones where I have a little more psychic distance from the events and the characters. I like escaping from my current reality, which I find very depressing for many reasons. And so I do think that is going to be one pitfall of trying to go back and read everything King's written. I might need to really try to pace myself, and I'm not like super enthusiastic about digging into a lot of the just contemporary set, less speculative stuff, since that's where my reading tastes have kind of veered away from the last bunch of years. And he can write. I'm just gripped by his voice, and so I have major plans now. I've been scouring eBay for sets of Stephen King used books. I went out to some used bookstores. I grabbed a bunch. So my Stephen King collection is expanding at a very fast rate. And I'm just wowed by early, young Stephen King here in The Long Walk, and older, mature Stephen King. He's still got it, and just writing compelling, interesting stories. This is the month I think I am all in on Stephen King. So I finished last month with the giant epic fantasy tome, The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams, and that was it had a lot of depth and richness to the storytelling, but man, did I need a palate cleanser after that. And what I turned to that was just exactly what the doctor ordered was Upgrade by Blake Crouch. So this was the perfect 4-star read for me, if you know what I mean. It's already kind of fading from memory in a lot of ways. It's not gonna leave the biggest impact, and I feel the same way about Dark Matter, where I was just super engaged while reading this. I found it just so easy to get into, so propulsive, and a little bit campy, which I was okay with. I didn't need this to be the most impactful read of my life, but I found the kind of main theme of kind of genetics and modifying the human genome and upgrading human biology in certain ways through genetic modifications to build your immune system, make your muscle stronger, make your sensory awareness sharper, up your intelligence and logical reasoning. And the way he pulled this off from inside the POV character, I thought was really cool and believable. Just how his thinking shifted in terms of what he was noticing, and how his boosted intelligence was changing kind of his thought processes, and his ability to make logical connections or deductions. I loved this, and it came around at the exact right time when I needed something quicker, and I had been reading Dragonbone Chair for a while, and kind of was slowing me down more generally with my reading, and this kind of boosted me back up, and then that's when I actually dove into The Long Walk right after. This re-energized me and was great fun. It's a quick, breezy sci-fi thriller style book, near future, and it's not gonna be the deepest character work ever, but I did at least have some investment in the main character, and and the events were fun and just unpredictable and kept me on the edge of my seat, and so it was perfect. It was exactly what I was hoping for from this book, I'm gonna save some other Blake Crouch reads, I think, for this kind of moment where I need something quick and snappy that's gonna hook me really easily. So that accomplished every goal I had for it. And also a big chunk of my month. I know I talked a lot about Dungeon Crawl Carl last month when I read this in print and did a reread of the whole previous 6 books, but the audiobook came out finally with Jeff Hayes' incredible narration, and so I did an entire reread of This Inevitable Ruin, the new Dungeon Crawl Carl release, book 7, and it was awesome. I can't lie, I do prefer this by audiobook, and so I was even more gripped, and I think had a more emotional time with it through Jeff Hayes' performance. And it's zany and he does incredible voices, but he is amazing with the quieter, hard-hitting, emotional scenes between characters, and he brings the emotion. He's a great actor, and so he just added to some of these scenes, and I just love how some of these action sequences are so huge and really tense, and then we go and have these quiet scenes that are so meaningful to the characters and that have been built up organically over many books so that we have impact here. And characters don't even need to be on the page that much for them to have a big impact, which is one of the great benefits of a long-running series. I love what he did in this book with expanding the scope. I love how a lot of these books feel so different from each other, and I like the different flavors of this story that we're getting. And so, yeah, this is like a World War One trench warfare style epic with all sorts of crazy, fantastical things thrown in. And the change in what that meant for some of the scenes, I think, made it really fresh for me. And the just expansion in like the political plot with what's going on in the galaxy. I just think this is a great middle book that is setting things up in a really cool way for going forward. So yeah, I was very happy with this one on the second read and first read. So if you're just starting your DCC journey or thinking about it, I know there's 10 planned books, and so we're most of the way there already. And for me, it's just continuing to get better and better and more gripping and more impactful as we go. Man, the last few books of this series have just been incredible for me. So would highly recommend diving in. This is feeling like true epic fantasy at this point. Yeah, there's not much actually going on here that feels like it's like the lit RPG elements that maybe were more present in the earlier couple books. So love the expanding scope, and man, love this second time around. So read DCC. I had a great chat with Derry on my channel about spoiler chatting, but we started non-spoiler. It's in the live section where we really are gushing together about why we love this series so much, and then get into kind of spoilers with impactful moments for really the first 6 books. We don't really dig into this one since not many people probably read it just yet. So if you love the series, you can check out our spoiler chat over there. Yeah. Oh man, I need book 8 now. I'm just this wait is going to be particularly painful. And then that takes me to what I'm reading now. I am almost done with the third book of a recent fantasy trilogy. So this is Witch Queen of Redwinter by Ed McDonald, book 3 of the Redwinter Chronicles trilogy. And a couple years ago, I read book 1 after it released. He's released basically one book a year. Very similar to Richard Swan in a lot of ways with that Empire of the Wolf series. And this one is Tor and Swan is Orbit. They're really similar in a lot of ways. I do think this one is more coherent and more compelling to me personally. But I was more hopeful a couple years ago after reading book 1 that this would turn into a favorite series. Then I'm feeling excited about it now. So it's kind of been petering out. I didn't love book 2, and I was hoping book 3 would really recapture my investment, but it kind of has gone the other direction as we build to this world-shaking stakes kind of plot involving historical, mythical demon figures and the underworld and some cosmic horror elements, and I'm not feeling invested, and with less than 100 pages left to go, it's not really where you want to be, where you don't really care how things are going to shake out. I do care about the main character, Rain. It's a single POV kind of story, first person, and I'm interested to see what happens with her and her closest companions, but I'm getting a little tired of this kind of style, which relies heavily on introspection by the POV characters. It's part of this is me just not being in the right mood for this kind of writing that just is so introspection heavy and thinking through all of your emotional states. And I started to really not like that in book 2 of Richard Swan's trilogy, and was getting annoyed by that in moments in Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson, and some other writers I think have been far more guilty of just laying it on even more heavily. And I find myself maybe growing further from the reader who really loves this kind of thing. I think Robin Hobb just pulls it off wonderfully with the Fitz books in a way that just never felt like it was too much. I'm getting maybe the ending will really turn things around for me, but I just have like 80 pages left, and I don't think that's going to be the case. I wish authors felt like they could just do bigger series. I think that's part of the problem is, 3 books, each less than 400 pages, and you're trying to tell a giant kind of world is at stake kind of plot, and it requires you to do a lot of world building and history building, and you have to feel like you care about the setting, and I think that's where a lot of authors are failing for me, like Swan and MacDonald, where I'm not caring about the setting enough. We're focusing too much on character drama and internal character stuff, and so why should I care about the fate of this country or this world? And yeah, it's one of these things. I saw Ed McDonald in an interview about this series said like, oh, it's a trilogy, but we'll see how the sales go. I really was planning or thinking of it as like a 7-book series, but the publisher wanted to sign me for a 3-book deal, and I get the sense that he's trying to fit a much more massive story into 3 short books, and way too much has been happening that I'm not caring about, and the major antagonists and villains of the series weren't really set up very well, and so yeah, this would have benefited from just an expansion in scope and page time, and not feeling so rushed, and just I'm thinking of some trilogies I've really loved recently, like the Greenbone Saga or Empire of Salt. They made me care about the settings, and the stakes were smaller. They weren't like the whole world might kind of fall under some evil influence. It was the fate of one small country, or in the case of Empire of Salt, like one small city, a city state, and just also with Guy Gavrier and his standalones, making me really care about just like one nation, and the stakes are more like who's gonna control this nation politically, or just more personal stakes. And I think that works when you don't have just thousands and thousands of pages to build something grander that spans thousands of years, and like Sanderson does in the Stormlight Archive. I appreciate that we have that page time to do all that world building and history building. I know that's not for everyone, and so for a lot of people, these more concise, just quicker to the point, smaller fantasy trilogies and just condensed series might be more their thing. I love the big expansive ones, the Malazans, the Realm of the Elderlings, Stormlight Archive, Shadows of the Apt at 10 books, Dresden Files just going to plus 15 books at this moment, and shooting for 25. Like, I love when authors just want to expand the scope and let me spend much more time to get invested in everything, and to build my just my level of caring about the place, and making them feel lived in, and not just kind of like some older medieval European style setting that feels generic. And so I'm falling fairly negatively, I think, in the end on this series as a whole, and certainly with this 3rd book, I think is my least favorite of the bunch. But I do think also reading books with a year gap between them, like a fantasy series where there's a lot of details and continuity that is important between the books, that hurts. And so, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to be reading too many new releases for, fantasy series, when I could just wait and, read the whole things through, because that really, I think, I was pretty into this in book 1. If I had book 2 and book 3 to go right into, this might be a different story. So it's hard to say exactly why I'm not having the best time with it, but so bit sad that one did not work out. But that was my February, and for March I have some fun things planned. I am taking part in A.R. Witham's Keymark Readathon. Again, I've done a bunch of these, and the goal is to get 5 books in for the Readathon, and I want to make sure I'm not just trying to squeeze them in right near the end of the month. I want to get out ahead a little bit, and so I'm planning to do some books that are just over 200 pages. Things like Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes, The Gunslinger by Stephen King to start my Dark Tower journey. These are just over 200 pages, and are ones I am highly anticipating, and so definitely want to get to these 2 at the very least. and we'll see what else I read. But I want to also maybe check out this epic fantasy first book of a duology, Riven Earth by my friend Zamar Amer. So that one I am excited to get to, although that one's a little bit chunkier than is required for the readathon, but still under 400 pages. So it's not doing too much extra. So that's what I have planned for the rest of this month. Editing Ben here the next day to pop in to bring you my book of the month, which I somehow forgot when I was filming. That's very poor form. But this one is an easy choice for last month, and that is the thrilling and tense and dramatic The Long Walk by Stephen King. This one I feel is really going to stand out in my memory of the entire year, and when I get later in the year, I'd be shocked if it wasn't on my top 10 books of the year. Just a really impactful read for me. So easy choice this month. I know some months it's been really tough, but this really stood out. But let me know what you thought of any of the books that you've seen here that you've read, and love to hear your reactions to them. Love to hear what you've been reading the last few weeks and really enjoying. And yeah, I'll catch you later.